Hello, my name is Jean Marie Stine, and my pronouns are she, her, and them, they. First, I would like to thank the Sunday Service Committee for their incredible forbearance while I edited and re-edited and even reconceived these musings on new beginnings. Looking back on my life, I realize it has been about nothing but new beginnings. I hated them at first, but then first grade, Nashville, Tennessee. Second grade, England, Nashville, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Third grade, Baton Rouge and Fort Worth, Texas. 6 schools in 3 years. I dropped from the top of my class to the lower middle at least. It was in Baton Rouge for the first time that I found myself a stranger among kids who had grown up together, had their own little cliques, and no interest in an outsider. That was the worst for me as a kid, and the best, because to occupy my time as others have done, I became an omnivorous reader, mostly of science fiction, with a collection of books in the hundreds. I read favorites many times. They became my friends, my companions, my first community. Why science fiction? There was something transcendent in it for me, like the part in the carol, Angels We Have Heard on High, where Gloria rises in a single extended note and then explodes triumphantly in excelsis Deo. And so, near the end of second grade, when we finally left Baton Rouge for Fort Worth, I was a reader, a loner, an introvert. Although I would not learn it for many years, my mom put her foot down at that point, pointing out that changing schools so often had hurt my grades. She insisted that in the future I remain in the same school until I graduated. Then, if we moved somewhere else, that I stay at that new school until graduation from it. And sure enough, we did not move from Fort Worth until I graduated grade school. Then we relocated to Davenport, Iowa, where I remained at Sudlow Junior High until I received my diploma. But before that summer was over, I was off to high school in Sacramento, California. I was still the outsider, but we stayed long enough in each town that the other kids had time to get to know me, and I always managed to find 2 or 3 kids in the school who read science fiction, and we became BFFs. I hated to leave when it was time to move again. Now, after developing a lifelong antipathy to moving, you might think I would have stayed in Sacramento for the rest of my life, but I didn't. You see, in those days, science fiction was the most despised form of literature on earth. Teachers actively discouraged students from reading it, and few people read it. Those who did were mainly nerds and geeks like myself. Since we read it, we knew it was not a slam bang action adventure thing at all, but a literature of ideas. And ideas are what geeks and nerds like best. I was one such, desperately lonely, in need of a community of folks to talk with about the mind blowing ideas I found in science fiction. Like how an enemy intent on war might be defeated without a single bullet being fired using a kind of psychological jujitsu. So I moved to Los Angeles, which had one of the largest and most active science fiction clubs. I never even paused to think about how much I hated moving. I was past that. I just packed my belongings and went. There, I found acceptance, understanding, long and satisfying conversations with like minded folks about the things that mattered to me most. It would be 3 decades and on the opposite side of the continent before I would discover another community of like minded people, acceptance, and things that connected to me spiritually. That was the UU, of course. Once in Los Angeles, for reasons of job or cheaper rent, I moved many times around Southern California over the next few years. Then, across a 50-year span, due mostly to tempting job offers, I traveled to the East Coast and back to the West half a dozen times at least, from north to south, from San Francisco to New Orleans, Minneapolis, Burbank, Baton Rouge, Virginia Beach, Chicago, Iowa City, Los Angeles, many times, Northampton, Massachusetts, Berkeley, now even San Miguel, A&D, and many others. Often, people who learned I had moved to so many different places in my adult life would seem surprised. I would tell them about my childhood and say that to me, packing your stuff and having movers carted off and following them to someplace new you would live seemed easy and natural as pie. Besides, my books were my companions, my friends, and where they were was home. But when I look back through the lens of new beginnings, I see multiple ways all my peregrinations as a kid and an adult influenced my life. For without realizing it, I had learned two lessons that instinctively guided my actions when dealing with new beginnings. The first was that while there would always be things you don't like about the new place or new situation you were in, an ugly strip of automobile dealers down the street, the lack of a good book club, a boss who can't boss, there will also always be things you love. Walks by the river shore, a used bookstore, being closer to grandkids, life will be tolerable. Second, you may be lonely as a new arrival, but if you are there for very long, you will make one or more BFFs. And if you hold each BFF you make close through the rest of your life, you will be surprised how they add up. But most importantly, I think all that moving made me more open to embracing new beginnings. I know I have taken jobs on that I have never done before. If I didn't think I could do them, I always said no. But if I believed they might be in line with my expertise or talents, I often said yes. We made a new beginning when we moved to Mexico, bought a house, and joined a new UU congregation here. Now the little kid who hated moving and starting over is beginning to wonder what her next new beginning will be.